It's time! And now, introducing your host, fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada, by way of Boston, Massachusetts, presenting live,
the Bostonian versus the book. Follow the show on Twitter at Boston versus the book.
Here he is, Matt Perrault!
Enjoy the show, enjoy the show, enjoy the show, enjoy the show.
We're off and running, boys and girls. How are you? Welcome into a Tuesday episode of the Bostonian versus the book, being brought to you by our friends at BetCris Arizona. We are loaded today with a lot of good things to get into. We've not talked NBA much. We haven't talked about the vote coming down for the NBA, which could happen today. Opening line being brought to you by Huel. We will get into it about Seattle and Las Vegas. Not everyone's on board for expansion with the NBA, and it could come down today. The vote may happen today or tomorrow as the league is meeting, and expansion could very well be on the table. It sounds like we're going to get a vote today for Vegas and Seattle. We will jump down the rabbit hole today, and we'll talk about the Sweet 16. We got a bunch of different trends to talk about to help you make better bets for the games happening on Thursday and Friday. There are some interesting numbers to get into. And speaking of numbers, today's guest is going to be a different type of conversation. Now, Regen is not sponsoring this show. They might one day. They might sponsor other things for Opening Line Media, but this interview today is not sponsored. I asked them to come on the show today to talk about what they are doing. Regen is now being funded by an underdog initiative called Guard Dog, which is a way of making responsible gambling a more regular thing. This app will force you to save money while you're gambling. It's a really interesting idea. It's a very interesting thought. It's kind of like Acorn. If you guys ever know that app Acorn, where it's about saving your coins, like saving your pennies or your nickels and dimes, and it adds up after a while. Regen's doing that for sports gambling. So Daniel's going to come on in, one of the founders of Regen. He's going to be here to talk about ways that you guys can set yourself up with Regen. I think the idea is brilliant. I think it's needed. We need more things like this where we're having honest conversations about sports gambling and about the dangers of sports gambling and how it's a great way of explaining, like, hey, look, honey, I went and gambled X number of dollars and I didn't lose all of it. I actually saved whatever. And I'll let Daniel explain how it works, but it's a pretty cool idea. So we'll get to that coming up in the bottom of the hour. There is a lawsuit that has been filed against the NFL for micro betting. They also have brought in FanDuel and DraftKings on this. There are interesting ways of suing for your own gambling addiction, but according to this lawsuit, it's the NFL's fault for getting in bed with sportsbooks, and thus their losses from gambling too much and too heavily on micro markets with live wagering. This is now the responsibility of the NFL. Okay, that's a little different, but sure. I got an email from somebody yesterday who wanted to say that they were sorry that the show is ending. I want to reiterate here at the top that BvB, this show is not ending. We are changing the name. That is a very important piece here. Nothing is ending. We are just transitioning over to a new name. As we talked about last week, this is because we have started Opening Line Media, which is a company now that's going to be a collaborative effort, a collective of sports gambling and sports podcasts that will be together. Our first one has dropped with Coach JY, James Young. The Coach's Edge is out now. The first 2 episodes are out. Episode 3 will drop tomorrow, most likely, before the games in the Sweet 16. But Opening Line Media is going to be the name of our YouTube channel now. Pushing the Odds with Matt Perrault will be the name of this show, and that happens Monday. Okay, so just a heads up, we're not ending anything. We're going to keep rolling and we'll keep going, but just a heads up as to how things are going to change. The name is going to change. You can subscribe to our YouTube at Opening Line Media. That is where my podcasts will live, where JY's podcasts will live, and future podcasts for other collaborators and other talent, content creators will be seen. And so it's more of a bigger picture. This was always the dream with Dave and I. We had always talked about this as being an umbrella organization, a collective of talent, of how do we do this? And Coach JY, his podcast is the first iteration of that, right? And so it's on me as not just the host of this show and the owner of this show. It is on me as now the owner of Opening Line Media to do proof of concept. I have to go out and prove that we can make this into a business. This is not just a for free fun thing that Coach is doing. Coach is out on his own. He is owning his own content. This is something that I do not own. That podcast. JY owns that podcast. That is his. We're just getting together from a marketing standpoint, and he's going to put his podcast on Opening Line Media on YouTube, and we're going to go off and have hopefully a successful business relationship. And then we'll do it again with another podcast, and we'll look to grow that way. So nothing's ending. We're just changing. Okay. So Pushing the Odds with Matt Perrault will be the name of this program. You're going to see it up here, but that's the only real change, right? The banner above me will say differently. The YouTube video that will be out, we'll say it differently. The Twitter account will say it differently, right? I mean, we have Opening Line Media, and on X, you can go and follow at Opening Line HQ. But at Boston versus the book is going to become at Pushing the Odds. And I haven't even looked and see, like, we have to go and change all that and get that over. So that will happen in the very near future. So I'm excited to see what happens come Monday, but Friday will be a special show. And we've talked about this, that the last roll call Friday will be on Friday. And as we will close the book, pun intended, on Friday and move on. And so that show on Friday, if you haven't had a chance to kind of like carve out the time on Friday, I would love to see as many brigade members as possible to get in. I think I'm probably going to do it during bonus time. To be quite honest, I think we're going to do the full 1 hour show for Sports Grid, and then we'll do bonus time and get into the final roll call Friday, because I want it to highlight as many people as possible. And I don't think that's great television to go ahead and have like a million different lines on the screen, like for half an hour or an hour straight. So, that I think is the important piece to do that. So we're excited to see how do that. Josie Myers is asking, it'd be cool to have some shows that are sports specific, like a golf guy or girl, soccer guy. Well, I mean, yeah, that's what we started. I mean, JY's basketball, right? So he's not going to go talk soccer. Coach James Young is going to do first the tournament, right? And then when college basketball is over, he will shift to just the NBA. And then when the NBA is over, he will shift to the WNBA. And then he'll come back, obviously, and shift back to the NBA and shift back into college basketball and whatnot. And the offseason will be interesting. Obviously, he's got to find topics to get into, but he's got other things going on where international basketball and whatnot he can get into until he gets back. So that's our basketball guy, right? I have pretty much locked down our pro football guy, and you probably have been watching this show. If you haven't been watching this show, you probably know who the pro football guy is going to be. So we got a pro football guy. We'll have a college football guy or girl. That's a very important piece this summer, is to start a pro football and college football podcast. Then at some point, find our way into, I have other plans. I don't want to give it all away, but I think it's going to be fun to see what happens. We're not doing an F1 show unless Addison wants to host it. If Addison wants to host it, Addison, who has been the biggest, he's been the biggest guy pushing F1 onto this show. If he wants to host an F1 show, and if he wants to bring in a co-host, if Addison wants to host it, I will put it on Opening Line Media. Yes. So that's how we get the F1 content going. If only Addison Only him. He has to be a part of it. Now, somebody else can host it. Somebody else can be on with him. But he has to be on camera, and he has to be doing it. If he does it, fine. F1. Yes, we'd get in with F1. So there's a million ideas. Yeah, Josie Myers is seeing NASCAR. Absolutely. NASCAR. For me, the most important thing is to be successful. Okay. There's a million people that want to host podcasts. There's a million people that want to be a part of this. I've been talking to so many of them who have, I got a baseball guy who wants to come on. I've got an overarching sports gambling guy who wants to come on. And I was like, that's kind of what I do. Sorry. But like, it has to work. So I'm not going to just add 15 different podcasts and then not be able to produce for the content creators who are doing the work. Okay. So this has to be, we're going to go maybe slower than people would think with this, because one, we've got to make sure that this show, Pushing the Odds, aka BvB, this show has to be successful, right? First and foremost, this is our flagship show. It's our 5-day-a-week live show. And then now we have JY and we have the Coach's Edge. So the Coach's Edge has to be successful. And then once that show is successful and that show is up and running, then we'll move on to the next one. So I'm not going to try to bite off more than I can chew, but I do think the concept makes sense. And I think the response has been really positive from people who want to be a part of it. And I'm saying, look, guys, I'm not in this for the short term. I'm not trying to do this for a year and have it all blow up. Bettors Arizona coming in and being the title sponsor of this podcast of BvB/PTO, the fact that they are the title, that let me do this. Without them, I couldn't start Opening Line Media. But because we have the show sponsored for the year, I've never entered this show knowing that we had a signed contract that we are going to be doing the show from now until the end of next football season. Like, there's a guarantee that that's there, right? There's a guarantee that we're on the air until February of next year. And hopefully they'll renew and we'll go back for another year, right? It's a year-to-year deal that we have with Bettors Arizona. But Adam Bjorn is a guy who I'm going to thank forever for stepping up and saying, look, I want to be a part of this. I want to do this with you. Let's grow. Let's push this. So because we have the Bettors involvement, now we can do other things. And we never had that. Dave and I were never able to get that over the finish line to get the show to be secured for a year. And since we are now guaranteed to be on the air here for at least one more year until February of next year, now we can build. So that's what we're doing. So Dubs for golf, 100%. I got to get him back on. I'm trying hard to get him back on. It's hard. Like, it's hard to get him back on because Megan Payton has that guy all over the globe. If you don't know, Dubsy got married to Sean Payton's daughter, and they're expecting their first child here in like 4 months. So like, whirlwind, like from the last time Dubsy appeared on this show to what's going on now, like he gets total access to the Denver Broncos. He's on the sidelines. They're traveling the globe. He gets married to Megan Payton, and then he winds up getting himself into a dad role. So congratulations to the two of them. Megan is an absolute sweetheart. She's been on this show numerous times. She's a darling of the media industry. She's tremendous at what she does. And the two of them met while they were working at the FanDuel Sports Network, and they were doing stuff together, and the romance, obviously grew from there. Married, baby on the way. So Dubsy for golf, I would love to see Dubsy come back to be part of this, but my gut tells me that Dubsy's not going to be able to host many podcasts given what his schedule is going to look like in the near future. So he's got a lot of stuff going on. So hopefully he'll come back on. I've told him we want him for the Masters. So I don't know if he's going to be able to jump in here for the Masters, but that's the hope, is to get Dubsy back on in a couple of weeks here before the Masters to get his take, because he obviously is a incredible fan favorite, brigade favorite host, guest, guy to come in here. Oh, by the way, Ish, don't sleep on that. I'm searching for an MMA guy. Yeah, I want an MMA podcast, 100%. I want a combat sports podcast. Let me call it that. I don't want just an MMA podcast. I want a combat sports podcast to be on the show. And I do think that that's viable. I do think that has to be the right person. Coach James Young made the most sense from a basketball standpoint for me when he approached me and he had his stuff with Sports Grid. It was time for him to branch out. It made perfect sense. Same thing can be done with an MMA guy, with a football guy. I want people who have followings. I want people that are respected in the business. I'm not looking to have somebody break into the business and the first time they've ever hosted something is with us. That's not really what I'm interested in doing. And I've had a couple people, young kids reach out and be like, hey, I would love to do this. I'd work for free. I want to that's not what I'm interested in doing. And I hope that they have a phenomenal career and I'll catch them, on the way up. But from the launching pad, I'm not interested in launching careers right now. I'm interested in working with like-minded people and people that want to do what we're doing and want to be involved with what we're doing. So that's how things are going to roll going forward. Let's talk the opening line. It's being brought to you by our friends at Huel. Vegas and Seattle both waiting for the NBA today. And I played the wrong stinger. That's on me. Opening lines being brought to you by our friends at Huel. Vegas and Seattle. Today, the NBA is meeting, and they could have news, and they could have an announcement that they are going to go ahead and declare Vegas and Seattle with the vote to be expansion franchises in the NBA. This is being brought to you by our friends at Huel. You guys can go to Huel.com, Huel.com/BvB, 15% off your first order for new customers. If you guys haven't found out what Huel is as of yet, this is 40 grams of protein per meal. Huel is human fuel. That's where the name comes from. 27 vitamins and minerals, up to 11 grams of fiber. It is gluten-free. It is vegan. They have ready-to-drink shakes as well as the powder where you can make your own. I do both. I've got the ready-to-drink in my fridge at all times, and I use the powder as well whenever I have a little more time to go ahead and make a smoothie / meal. 400 calories, on these meal replacements and 40 grams of protein. Huel.com/BvB. Promo code is BvB for 15% off your offer. That code is good for the rest of the week. So it'll change after that, but that code is good for the rest of the week. Okay, so Vegas and Seattle both could learn their fates today. Maybe tomorrow, but probably today. There's a 2-day meeting for the NBA right now for them to get together and talk about whether or not they're going to vote to expand to 32 teams. Now, this hasn't been this hasn't been warmly received by everybody, okay? Some people think that 32 is way too much, that they're watering down the league, that the NBA is not needed to go to 32 teams. But both markets in Seattle and Vegas are both excited about this, as they should be. Seattle with the Supersonics, when they lost it, it was a heart-wrenching thing for that market. They became the OKC Thunder. They won a championship last year. That was really hard for that market to deal with. Vegas is an NBA city. And I've seen and heard so many people talk negatively about the idea of Las Vegas becoming an NBA franchise. And probably the biggest pushback I've heard from people about it are coming from people who are not in this market. And I've been here 10 years. Yeah, I'm not a local, but no one really is a local here. But I've been here a decade. And during that 10 years of living here in Vegas, the thing that I have learned and the thing that I know is this is a basketball market. You can have the Raiders, you can have the A's, you can have the Golden Knights, and the Golden Knights have been incredible. But if you ask this market, what is the one sport that you would 100% support, it would be the sport of basketball. The Aces drawing what they draw is not by accident. Sure, they've won 3 championships, and that is like a huge deal. It's in a perfect time in the calendar because during the summertime, nobody wants to be outside here in Las Vegas. They want to be inside, and they want to be in air conditioning. And you got that with the Aces. On top of that, they have the best coach in Becky Hammonds. They have the best player in Asia Wilson, and they win championships. So all the things check all the boxes for the Aces to be one of the most successful and most well-supported franchises in the WNBA. The NBA is going to be an absolute home run here in the market. I don't care about the attendance that is going on with the Raiders. I don't care about the tourism dollars. We're seeing all sorts of people talk negatively about this market. Let's start with a discouraging metric. Yahoo Sports wrote in 2025, visitors to Las Vegas were down 7.5%. Room rates, price-wise, availability, up 3.5%, $151 according to the Las Vegas Convention and Tourism Authority. Rooms with 80% filled at rates at about $200 per night. Why does that matter? Las Vegas is highly competitive about tourism. It has 2 million residents in its county. Yeah. People travel to watch their games, travel to watch fans. The thing about Vegas that I don't think people fully understand is how excited this market is going to be to see the superstars of the NBA come to this market. The NBA in Las Vegas have had a very interesting history dating back to the All-Star game back about 15, 20 years ago, where there was the shooting on the strip and everybody said that the NBA would never come back to Las Vegas. It would never work. Well, they then gave Las Vegas the NBA Cup. And the NBA Cup, for the most part, has been successful, even though it's a Mickey Mouse made-up in-season tournament where you don't know the teams that are going to show up, and they play it on a Tuesday, okay? So, but it's sold pretty well, and it's been pretty well supported by the market, as well as fans who have flown in to be a part of it. But that should not be used as a barometer as to whether or not Vegas can support an NBA franchise. The UNLV Rebels, the Running Rebels, the basketball team, now, they haven't been that successful, but they still have a very dedicated fan base that wants to go and be a part of Rebel basketball. And they play at a very old gym without all the modern amenities that most of these college basketball programs are playing with. USA Basketball has been coming to Las Vegas every summer for their camps for decades now. This is a basketball market first and foremost. And I was glad to see that there has been other people in the market or in the media. Jesse Granger, who writes for The Athletic, covering the Golden Knights, wrote, at its core, Las Vegas is a basketball town. The foundation was laid by Jerry Tarkanian and the UNLV Running Rebels in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s when they took college hoops by storm with 4 trips to the Final Four and a championship in 1990. While the support UNLV basketball has waned over the last decade, fans still pack the house for NBA's Summer League and USA basketball exhibitions. I know the recent NBA Cup games haven't been as well attended, but I believe a team of its own would captivate the city. Vegas wants expansion, okay? They want expansion. They don't want the A's. And I don't mean to be mean to the A's, because I do think the A's are a big reason why people are questioning whether or not a basketball team can be supported, because the market is not that big. Okay, this is not Seattle. Seattle has a gigantic media market, population center. There is no question that Seattle can support a hockey team, an NFL team, a baseball team, and a basketball team. That should be a 4-sport market in Seattle. Well, 5 sports if you count the W, right? So there's a lot more up there in Seattle from a population standpoint to work with than there is here in the desert. I'll give you that. And yes, every team that's played here in the desert does want to pull in the rival fans. If you go to a Golden Knights game and they're playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, or they're playing the Montreal Canadiens, or the Vancouver Canucks, you're going to see 30% of those fans, if not more. You'll see 30% of the fans coming in, and they're going to be a part of it. That's just the nature of the business and how it is. So now people are like, wait, you have the A's, the Raiders, the Aces, the Golden Knights, and you're going to add basketball. Are there enough people to be there? It's an easy yes for me. It's an easy yes because of what basketball has meant to this market. You put LeBron James, you put Jason Tatum, you put Steph Curry. The NBA is made of superstars. That's what every team builds its brand upon, the face of the franchise. That on a marquee on the Las Vegas Strip, everyone's going to want to go to these games Basketball is not like football. There aren't helmets to block these guys' faces. We know who they are. We know what they're about. We know what their brands are. We know what their shoe line is. We are well aware of what NBA players, who they are and what they're about. And that is marketable, sellable, and easily supported here in the city. It's not even a question to me. It's not even a question. NBA is an absolute home run. It'll push everything down. And I think the NBA expansion team, because of the Golden Knights are number one, because they won the Stanley Cup in 6 years, which was insane. Okay, that's insane. So the bar is pretty high for an expansion team. But the Aces changed their name. They weren't expansion, but they felt like they were expansion because they changed their name. The A's should be changing their name, but they're not. That's a huge mistake. The baggage of the Raiders causes people here in town to go, that's LA's team. That's not our team. It's a big problem for the Raiders. They don't really care because of the money they're making with the NFL. The local market is not nearly as important as the TV revenue that the Raiders are getting, but it does matter. It does matter. In my mind, it does matter about being original, being born in Vegas, Vegas born. Okay. That's a term here in town that really matters. And for the expansion Supersonics, it's going to be like the Cleveland Browns, right? Baltimore took away the Cleveland Browns, made them the Baltimore Ravens. Seattle lost the OKC Thunder. Now they're going back to the Supersonics. It's not going to be the same thing, but the green color, that green and yellow, is going to be very well supported. The kids have heard their grandparents talk about Sean Kemp and everything that went on with Gary Payton and whatnot with the glove. So bringing back the Supersonics makes perfect sense. If we do it, though, you have to expand the map. Realignment is needed. You got 32 teams. One team from the West has to go to the East. It's got to be 16 and 16. You can't put Seattle and Vegas in the East. Both have to be in the West. So you got to move somebody to make it 16 and 16 to make it even. The New York Times put this map out. I thought it was pretty interesting to look at a realignment map as to what it could look like. This is 8, not 6, 8 different divisions now in the NBA. I actually like this. I actually think this is neat. So you have a Supersonic team coming into the league, which joins Portland, Sacramento, and the Golden State Warriors. If you're Golden State, you love that. Like, you love that. And then Vegas coming in with the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Suns. That division is awesome. That is an awesome division to bring into the NBA. I don't really love that West Midwest, the Jazz, the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the Grizzlies. I love the fact, though, that the Thunder and the Nuggets would be battling for a divisional spot. That's tremendous. You look at New Orleans, Houston, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Spurs in the South. Not bad. I don't love the East and the East Central. I'm not going to lie. But you're moving the Timberwolves from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference, which I think would be smart to go ahead and do that. And then you go Pistons, Raptors, the Wizards, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right. But you do get the Brooklyn Nets, the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, and the Sixers all together in the same division. That's my favorite. There's been a bunch of ideas about moving teams around, but that's my favorite from a realignment standpoint. Because I think if you put the Lakers and the Vegas expansion team, whatever we're going to call it, in the same division, and you have them playing 6 times a year here in Vegas, whatever, 4 times a year, whatever the schedule winds up going and being, oh, that's a good thing. That's a great thing to watch it happen. Celtics get no competition, Chef Benny. Yeah, I guess so, with the Knicks. I like it. I really, really do like it. T-Mobile Arena, people are asking where they're going to play. They should play at T-Mobile. That's where they should play. It was built that way. I know there's been some issues as to like where they're going to play, but you can build a facility. But T-Mobile was built to have 2 teams, hockey and basketball. Have them play there. That's where they should play. They built it. I know Bill Foley built it with a lot of his own money, but that makes the most sense. That's a ready-made facility that's step right in. Yes, the Golden Knights are going to want first right of refusal from a calendar standpoint. That's not great. I'll give it to you. That fight's not great, but that's what I would do. That's what I would 100% do if I was the NBA. We'll find out some more details later on after the vote happens today, but it looks like today you will see the NBA expand to 32 teams in Vegas and Seattle, both in the Supersonics return to the NBA. Okay, I mentioned this. I was doing some research a couple of weeks ago, and I'm somebody that does want to bring to light the positivity or some of the positive stories in sports gambling, because so often we're getting hit. Like I was watching CNN this morning, and I don't know how long this has been going on, but I don't watch the news very much because it's pretty boring and pretty depressing. But I was watching CNN, and I watched CNN, and they now have Kalshi odds running on the bottom line for every single story that they are reporting. 35% chance this happens. 75% chance this happens. My daughter, who is pretty well immune to most of the stuff with gambling, looked at me and said, "Daddy, what is that? Why are there odds being run on the bottom of the screen?" And she's 11. And I went, "You're right. Like, we are gamifying life. Everything now is a bet." So I am concerned about where we are going. I get the emails and I see the things that, like, AOC's new thing is like, she's going to go after prediction markets and she's going to go after sports gambling. And like, there's more politicians that are realizing that there's energy and gas here to be burned if you go anti-gambling. So let's talk about the positive sides. Let's talk about people who are doing things the right way. And that's how I ran into Daniel and the guys at Regen, who have been kind enough to join us here on the Bostonian versus the book. Daniel, Matt Perrault, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you, Matt. Great to jump on here, and good to see you again. Great to share some stuff about Regen with the folks who are watching.
Yeah, look, most people who are watching this have no idea what you guys are, so I kind of want to start from like the beginning as to what Regen is and how Underdog has stepped up with their Guard Dog fund to get you guys up and running. Where did the idea come from, and what exactly is Regen?
Yeah, totally. So the idea came from my co-founder, Ben, who was a professional poker player, and found that, as many of us do, that he was, losing more than he was winning. And he started to think, look, if I can spend all this time, all this effort betting and have nothing to show for it at the end of it, it doesn't mean I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but it'd be amazing to have something to actually show for it at the end. And he started to think, how can I think about managing my bankroll better so that I actually do have something at the end? And that was the start of the kind of thinking process around Regen. What Regen is ultimately is like Acorns for sports betting. Anytime you bet, win, or lose, you're going to connect your checking account. We're going to move a little bit of money into a savings or investment account for you, so that even while you're having fun over here, I know we're all having a great time betting on March Madness at the moment, even while you're doing that, a little bit of cash is going to be stacking up for your future over here. So even if you have a bad beat, or even if you have a big win, you're always going to be putting something over here.
So let's talk about this from a practicality standpoint. Okay, so I'm just a normal gambler. I bet $10 a game. And so I am setting up with Regen. I am syncing my sportsbook to the Regen app. And then what am I doing in order to get that money to be pulled out?
Yeah, totally. So when you first sign up with Regen, you connect your sportsbooks and you connect your checking account, and you set a preference. You say, every time I bet, to your point, Matt, every time I bet $10, I want to save 10% of that, move $1 over. And you set that preference once. And then when you go away and do all of your, get all your action on your sportsbooks, wherever you're playing, whether that's on FanDuel, whether it's on DraftKings, Underdog, wherever it may be, we're going to run that in the background and just move it, set it and forget it once, and we're going to move it in there. So super, super simple. All you've got to do is set it up up front, and then we take care of all the rest.
In terms of responsible gaming laws and in terms of what we're trying to build, how did the Guard Dog situation come from? When did Underdog get involved? And what are they hoping that they can do with their users at Underdog when you guys do roll this out?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got in touch with the folks over at Underdog last year, and the team over at Guard Dog. And what really, I think, stood out for them and what they're really interested about is the fact that, this is about doing something innovative in this responsible gaming space that's actually for everyone, right? It's not necessarily about folks who maybe have something that they need to address or any kind of problem behavior. This is about, look, why don't we just, while we're having some fun over here, why don't we just make sure that we're doing something sensible, responsible, sustainable over here? And I think that really resonated for them, because it was really for everyone. And so after having a few conversations with them, they decided to invest in the business, which is awesome. And they're also rolling it out to all of their user base. And in fact, it's already live today, Matt. I can share that with your viewers. You can find us in the Underdog app under the responsible gaming space. You'll see the name Regen, and that link will take you through to the App Store, where you can download the product and go through all the onboarding.
You mentioned that it's basically Acorn for sports betting. I know Acorn has gone through different iterations, but they do now enable you to have an investment account where you're not just going into a savings account, but you're putting it into the market, into like a slow earning account. Is that one day a goal for what you guys want to try to do as well, besides just putting it back into your checking account, but also investing?
Yeah, 100%. So the way that it works currently is that, we move that money from your checking account into a savings wallet. That's as the product is today. It sits there. It's just going to build up a little store of value for you there. In the next few months, we're going to be rolling out that money is not just going to move into a wallet where it's not going to be earning any yield, but actually being pushed into a really, really low risk investment account where that's just going to beat inflation and accrue for you underneath. So exactly to your point, we're going to be making sure that stack of cash that people are building is going to be growing over time. And what's cool, Matt, I think this is going to resonate a lot with your viewers, is that, that really enables folks to build something for the future, right? We all know that, I love betting on sports. I think it's absolutely awesome. And that's part of the reason why I built this business. But to be able to have something that's there and growing for me for the future, and maybe achieving the goals that I really want, whether that's, the down payment on the house, the golf trip with the boys, whatever it may be, I think that's just, to be able to unite those two things is been really awesome.
What is the pushback when people say, I'm not interested, or a player doesn't like it? What do you hear from people as a pushback? Because it's kind of like eating your vegetables. Everybody knows you're supposed to do this, right? Everybody knows you're supposed to eat vegetables and or save money rather than gamble that money. What's the pushback that you hear from users that are like, I know I should do this, but I'm not going to?
Yeah, look, that great question. I think some of the pushback that we get is like, look, I know where my finances are. I know how things are going. I kind of, I feel like I'm broadly speaking in control. And so, this is like an extra thing I don't necessarily need. But, if you push a little bit harder and you say, okay, so how often do you kind of move a bit of cash over into a savings account? They say, oh, I do it when I remember it and things like that. You say, okay, well, kind of how often is that? And they say, well, maybe it's every month, but actually really it's every 3 months, or actually really it's maybe every kind of 4 or 5. And you realize that when you say to them, look, dude, you need to make a good decision once with Regen. You set it up at the start, you forget about it, and we're going to take care of the rest. And they go, yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess this would be kind of helpful. But yeah, that tends to be the pushback that we get a little bit from users at least. Sorry,
but my computer was about to die, so I had to go ahead and plug it in because it was telling me you're going to go off the air. So sorry, I had to get up. I think what's fun.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, continue, because I think it's fascinating, because I do think people naturally push back on you.
Totally. The other one we get is, how do you save money when I lose, right? That's a classic question we get. How do you save money when I lose? And the answer is, obviously, is because while your action's taking place at the book with your bankroll, we're moving money from your checking account. So if you tell us, like, look, Dan, I want to save 10% or 5% every time I lose. Okay, so you lose $100 over here. Really, really tough beat. Bad news. But hey, at least there's $5 moving from your checking account, not from your bankroll, into this savings account. So for a lot of our users, they say that helps them sleep a bit easier at night. They say, look, bad beat, but at least I did something good for myself over here.
Do they ever talk about the fact that it kind of helps them with the explanation to the significant other, that it might be a little angry at what they're doing and saying, hey, look but I'm saving X number of dollars. It's forcing me to save even when I am gambling. I know you don't like the gambling, but I'm saving at the same time.
Totally. Like, I think all of that it's about being like, look, I know intrinsically that this is something that's a bit risky, but it's fun. It's something that I enjoy, but it enables me to do something good over here. And so, it does enable that conversation to happen really, really well. And one of the features that we're going to be rolling out, actually, Matt, and this is something that, I'm going to share with your viewers, is we want to be able to say, listen, let me have an accountability partner or an accountability buddy on that savings that I have. So I can't just pull it out, right? I want to say, you know, I want my spouse or a friend or a family member to say, hey, you know, Dan wants to pull that money out. You know, I'm okay with that, but, you know, he just should think about it himself. So that's another cool way for people to just say, hey, listen, I'm taking this seriously. I'm building this financial future. I'm building these savings so that they can continue to enjoy their pastime over here.
Very cool. So Regen is available in the App Store, right? Where can folks
100%.
go and find Regen, and how can they go and access it now?
If they go and search for Regen Invest in the App Store, if they search for Regen, they'll have to scroll a bit, but if they search for Regen Invest, it'll pop up right there. So go and check it out, download it. Let us know any feedback, anything that you have. We're always here to listen to comments. We're a young startup. We're trying to be really agile, be really responsive, want to hear from users. So Regen Invest on the App Store. You can find us obviously on the socials as well if you search for Regen. And yeah, Matt, appreciate you having me on, and delighted to be able to share a little about Regen with your folks.
Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk again down the line as you guys get further into this, but congratulations on the start. Really happy you guys are up and running and doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Matt. Good to speak. Take it easy.
That is Daniel from Regen joining us here on the Bostonian versus the Book. Good to get him on the program talking about what it is. And look, as I mentioned before, that was a way of just, I think if you guys are in that mode, right? If you're in the March Madness, and there's an article, the story that we're going to get into a little bit later on about the NFL being sued by a player, but by a gambler because of micro marketing and micro betting, and that they spun out of control because they weren't able to stop themselves from gambling. This is a way, it's not going to stop you from gambling, but it's going to at least give you where, for you're saying for every $10 I bet, I want to save $1, you start adding that up over the course of the entire NCAA tournament. And it doesn't matter if you're drinking. It doesn't matter if you're not completely sober with what you're doing. That money's going to be put in that bank account. And then afterwards, when you're done, you're like, oh, okay, so I lost this. Ish, I'll answer that question for you. And Daniel, can you withdraw from that savings at any time? Is there a fee from doing that? Daniel is saying there is no fee and you can withdraw it whenever you want. So Daniel's saying, Ish, yeah, you can do that. So it's a way of protecting yourself and kind of saving yourself from yourself in a way. And as I said, like there's a lot of times when different people will come on the show and they'll be sponsors of the show. That was not a paid spot. I wanted to bring Regen on because as we get into the NCAA tournament further in, we get into the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 and the Final Four and all this, people start getting a little bit crazy because you may have had a phenomenal run this past weekend. And if you just bet favorites, you might be swimming in it right now and you might think that the world's your oyster, and then you end up giving it all back. We've all been there, right? Like you're feeling awesome. You're like, I did it. I'm up 500, I'm up 5,000, whatever it is. And then you're like, well, I'm going to keep on winning because I won last weekend, so I'm going to win this weekend. And then you end up blowing all of it and there's nothing to show for it. And you're like, why did I do that? Well, this is a way of protecting that, right? This is a way of ensuring yourself that you're not going to have that happen. So check it out with Regen Invest in the App Store. I think it's a very interesting way of getting involved and helping yourself as a gambler. And responsible gaming is something that I think we all need to spend more time talking about and more time, looking at and finding different ways of helping people who are having an issue with gambling. The Sweet 16 starts on Thursday. Let's jump down the rabbit hole and find out ways that you guys can bet it. Jumping down the rabbit hole for the Sweet 16 being brought to you by our friends at Rabbit. If you guys are in a group chat, if you are trying to take that group chat and take it into a real world situation, well, here's how you can do it with Rabbit. Peer-to-peer sports betting app, a true peer-to-peer sports betting app where you can create and share customized sports picks. You can challenge your friends, not the house, and wind up getting yourself 5 free Rabbit cash to try it out when you sign up at Rabbit. Use that code Rabbit5 when you download on the Google Play or Apple Store for Rabbit with peer-to-peer sports betting here this March. Let's talk about trends. Things and ways you guys can go ahead and bet if you would like for the Sweet 16 games. Let's talk about it because obviously we got 4 games. We have 8 games in total, 4 games on Thursday and 4 games on Friday. Let's start with some history. Alabama and Michigan. That total is 175. That is the second highest total for a game in this round over the last 30 years in the NCAA tournament. This is high. We don't normally see this in terms of the Sweet 16. Why? Because when you get later in the tournament, you get into these big domes, right? These bigger environments. It's harder to shoot. The shooting lines are not as accurate, not as prolific. And so you end up getting yourself into a lower scoring game. 175 is high. However, there has been 6 games with a total over the last 30 years with this total of 175 or higher. It's 5-1 to the over of 175. So even though it is high, most likely we're going over between Alabama and Michigan. Most likely we're getting offense between these two teams in an up and down game where both these teams are going to wind up going into the 80s. So if you're following the trends, Alabama, Michigan, bet it over. Big Ten is 34-19 against the spread in the dance over the last 3 years. That's by far the best ATS record of anybody in the NCAA tournament. They are 27-9 as a favorite over the last 3 years. ATS. That is unbelievable. 6 teams are left in the Big Ten. Your favorites are Nebraska, Purdue, and Michigan. They are all favorites going into this. Nebraska plays a Big Ten team in Iowa, so you've got a Big Ten versus Big Ten game. But Nebraska, Purdue, Michigan, favorites. Arkansas, 8-point dogs to Arizona. Only John Calipari's UMass team against Kentucky in the Final Four in 1996, my freshman year at UMass, where we all came back from break to watch and get revved up and excited for UMass. And then the Final Four goes down and UMass goes crazy because we got housed by Kentucky, killed by Rick Pitino, and we rioted. Arkansas is an 8-point dog to Arizona. You haven't seen this very often with Calipari on top of that. John Calipari is a dog. He's been a dog 13 times in the NCAA tournament in his career. He is 9-3-1 against the spread. And when he's been at Arkansas and Kentucky, when John Calipari has been a dog, he is 7-0-1. He has never failed to not cover when he's been a dog at Arkansas or Kentucky, and 7-1 against the number as a dog of 4 points or more in the dance. He's a big dog, 8-point dog here for this. If you want to follow that trend, we're going ahead and taking Arkansas +8 up against Arizona. He may not win the game, but you got to think Calipari and company will have something there going in. And there we go. According to Ish, he likes Arkansas to win it off. Jimmy Football agrees to go ahead and play that. I don't hate it. I don't hate taking Calipari either on that. This is the 11th total time that Houston has played an NCAA tournament game inside the state of Texas, and it's their 4th game playing in Houston. They are 7-3 straight up, and they are in Texas, and they are 3-0 in Houston. I have already bet this. I bet Houston, and I laid 2 units on it, which is very rare for me to do that. I don't normally double down, but Houston will play Illinois, and then they'll play the winner of Nebraska and Iowa to make the Final Four. If Houston beats Illinois, and I do think they're going to beat Illinois, they're going to take apart whomever wins that game between Nebraska and Iowa. Okay. That is, congratulations. You've made the Elite Eight. You're getting fed to the wolves, and you're going to get devoured by Houston in Houston. Okay. Houston is going to have 2 home games, and everybody who is in, and I've lived in Houston, so I understand what the Cougar fans are going to do and what they've been doing. They know that Houston got sent to their region, and so Houston's going to play home games. They bought all the tickets at the Toyota Center. This is going to be a home game on top of a home game for Houston. They've never lost in Houston in the tournament. They don't lose this year, in my opinion. 4-0 to 5-0. Houston will go here to win and beat up on Illinois and then beat up on Nebraska or Texas. I don't know what that number was. That number was +110 2 days ago. If it's still plus money, I would 100% jump on that to Houston to win to win their bracket and to get to the Final Four, like to have them go to the South, to win the South, because like look at that. Look at that run for Houston. It's clear sailing at the moment if they get past Illinois. And that's not meant as disrespect to Nebraska or to Iowa, but come on now. Rick Pitino has been an underdog of 5 points or more 8 times in the NCAA tournament. He is a dog here to Duke. He is 6-2 ATS, and he's won the game outright 3 times. It will be a popular play. St. John's to beat Duke will be a popular play. Can't hate it. Can't hate it. Okay, I can't hate it. I actually like it. It's going to be trendy, but I like it. And finally, in 15 Duke non-conference games this season, the unders 12-3. Duke and St. John's. St. John's has been an under machine this year. Hard to see points between Duke and St. John's. Hard to see that game going over. That feels like a dead under in a really low-scoring rock fight. But I thought that Northern Iowa and St. John's was going to be a rock fight, and it did not turn into one. That was a higher-scoring game than I thought. St. John's has been playing over games recently. In this tournament, they've been actually scoring and giving up more points than I would think. But Duke locks down defensively as well. So 15 non-conference games for Duke, 12-3 to the under. I think it's probably a decent way of looking at the game between Duke and St. John's coming up. We'll do some more trends coming up tomorrow for the Sweet 16 with the Rabbit Hole, but our friends at Rabbit jumping down there, giving you some ideas of what you guys can do. And when you're talking in your group chat, that's how you guys can talk smack, going back and forth with that with your friends. Let's talk news of the industry and a lawsuit against the NFL. All right, news of the industry. This is kind of a strange story that popped up earlier today. And I understand why gamblers are angry and why gamblers are mad. But there is a lawsuit that has been filed against the NFL and DraftKings and FanDuel over micro betting addictions, namely live gambling. As the complaint reads, due to the known and unique ability of such high-speed, fast-resolving wagers to hijack gamblers' brains and keep them immersed in ceaseless betting action, the complaint charges, DraftKings and FanDuel drive customers towards microbetting. As the plaintiff tells it, DraftKings and FanDuel can collect and analyze detailed behavioral data about each of their customers and then rig the app to manipulate those customers. The speed of microbetting is depicted as encouraging more bets and as being akin to gambling on slot machines. Bettors can make live in-game wagers that resolve at a very rapid pace, such as what happens in one play, just like what happens after a gambler in a casino pulls the lever on a slot machine. There are no off-ramps or pause in the action with this type of betting. Micro betting is depicted as converting casual sports and recreational gamblers into hardcore addicts. This is from one guy, I think it might have been 2 guys actually, who got busted because they bet too much and too fast. Look, we're going to see more and more lawsuits like this over the coming years. I don't think they win. I don't think they have a leg to stand on. I don't think people are going to feel badly for them or feel like they're talking about this in a way that makes people go, I feel really bad for you for this. It was filed in Pennsylvania court. Christopher Sage and Terry Thompson accused the companies of negligence, design defect, failure to warn, unfair trade practices, and related claims. I mean, look, I don't understand. This is, according to Sportico, who wrote the article today, the argument is reminiscent of litigation against Meta and other social media companies accused of designing their platforms to cause children to become addicted through engagement boosters such as infinite scrolling and manipulation of algorithmic tailored feeds of photos and videos. Here, the sportsbook apps are depicted as knowingly taking advantage of people with gambling addictions and worsening those addictions. This is a layered effect, right? Because we have seen the companies be hammered for what they have presented for your high rollers, for your VIPs, for, hey, Why don't you come back in? We noticed you haven't been around for a while. We've noticed you haven't deposited for a while. What if he gave you $500 in your account? Would you go and bet, right? That trying to restart somebody back up to gambling, that's been a very big criticism, and rightfully so, okay? That's not good. When somebody needs to stop, they should be allowed to stop without somebody calling them or emailing them or texting them. But I have a hard time with the micro betting angle and saying that it's not all of it. It's only one part of it, that the micro betting part of it is what is causing the addiction. Look, gambling addiction is gambling addiction. You're going to be addicted to gambling, whether it be betting on, kids running down the street or whether it's going to be on an app. So it's not the micro betting. And I don't know how the NFL gets put into this. Okay. I'm not sure how the NFL gets linked into this, and the NFL is responsible because they're in bed with the gambling companies. They're on this lawsuit. They are including Genius Sports and the NFL and accusing them of enabling micro betting and encouraging gamblers to become hooked on micro betting. These companies allegedly partake in these actions so they can pad their own profits. The basic logic is the NFL and other leagues stand to gain with sports betting since it drives interest in games. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, wait. So they play the sport. You bet on the sport because they have a marketing arrangement with DraftKings and FanDuel. If DraftKings and FanDuel make money, then thus they pay the NFL. And so the NFL makes money when DraftKings makes money. So we're going to sue the NFL. They're responsible for that. That doesn't make any sense. So the NFL part of this is kind of ridiculous. If you're going to say that the app is rigged to keep you on it or to keep you gambling, I think there's a kind of an easier answer about personal responsibility in shutting the app, not funding the app. Like, you have to do a lot of things to gamble. Like, again, if you're saying that you're being given free rolls like crazy and thus there's not protections in place for an addicted gambler, I'll give you that. Those things need to be put into place and those practices need to be outlawed. I'm with you. But just blaming it on micro betting, again, if I'm the books, I'm giving up micro betting. I am pushing it away and saying, look, we're going to self-police us. We're going to go ahead and say, we don't need this. So, the micro betting markets are causing nothing but headache, and the overall handle is not big enough to matter. Now, I'm not talking about prop betting, and I'm not talking about in-game betting. I'm talking about micro betting, okay? I'm talking in-game micro betting, like first pitch, ball or strike, the stuff that got the baseball players for the Cleveland Guardians arrested, okay? That's the stuff I'm talking about. Giving up that market, I don't think is that big of a deal. Just go ahead and give it up, okay? That's not that big of a deal. Will the books ever give it up? No. Will the leagues ever push for it? Probably not. But that's where I would, if I saw this lawsuit and be like, you know what, this isn't worth it, because there's going to be more of these in different states. This is not the end or the one-off. There's going to be more and more people that are going to come with class action lawsuits saying that you are doing this. This micro betting stuff is akin to a casino. It's akin to a slot machine. We're going to be tied up in this legal argument about what is in terms of betting because of micro betting. And I would just say, look, forget it. It's not worth it, right? Sides, totals, parlays, futures, like, that's the stuff that sports betting should be allowed to partake in. And you protect that because that is sports gambling. But this other stuff of like, how fast will the next pitch go? It's the same thing with the whole Kalshi markets that we're talking about, right? I mean, so are we going to sue CNN? Is that next? So when someone becomes addicted to betting on prediction markets, are we going to sue CNN because CNN has the one that they put that out there? Is that next? I guess so, right? Because the next wave of addiction is going to be on prediction markets and those, platforms that are putting it out there. I'm having coffee with my daughter and I'm seeing what are the odds, 75% chance of this happening on the bottom line of CNN, which is weird. I'm not going to lie. That was weird to watch that this morning. Not where I expected it. Like during the election coverage. Okay. Like Kalshi's odds, like, okay, fine. But that's like a one-off, right? That's on one night in November or one midterm type deal, like every couple of years. Not in the morning on a Tuesday where I'm watching CNN and you're giving me stats and things I can bet. It's the Kalshi predictive desk, right? With like prediction desk, they call it. Bizarre, like bizarre. I don't think that that's needed. I don't think we have to gamify everything. They do. So if you're going to sue the NFL, I guess a lawsuit to CNN is coming up next when it comes to addiction for prediction markets. If you guys are watching live, don't move. Picks and plays coming in bonus time with just the picks. If you are watching on the replay on Sports Grid TV, thank you for being here. We're back tomorrow, same place, same time, Wednesday, for a 1 a.m. Eastern replay of BvB. For the rest of you guys, bonus time starts now. Somebody asked me a question during the interview with Daniel that, hold on, there it is. Matt, what are your thoughts on the sportsbooks asking Colorado residents to contact their congressman to object to player props being banned when they do the same thing by limiting? I'm a little confused by the question. So, one, let's break it down. Sportsbooks asking their customers to contact their representatives, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I think that that's important. If you like what that business is doing, I don't think that's inappropriate. I like that. I mean, I think that's a proper use of American democracy. The books limiting their players, that's a different conversation, and I don't believe that should be allowed. I've been on record on that. I don't think banning should be allowed. I think if you are going to take $1,000 from Tim, you need to take $1,000 from Tom. I don't think you get to discriminate because Tom wins more than Tim, so we're going to take Tim's bet and not Tom's bet. Not interested. Okay? I'm not interested in that. I think that that's wrong. I've been anti that for a long time. I think there needs to be some level of Bill of Rights. I think discrimination based upon your success as being a gambler is wrong. I think if you're going to operate a book, dealing with winners is going to be necessary. I don't think you should be a book that operates strictly on attracting people who lose. I don't think that's right. I think that that's wrong. And I don't think you should be taking bigger bets from losers and smaller bets from winners. I think that's discriminatory. I think that that's wrong. And again, you can come up with the whole beard angle and come up with the whole syndicate angle. And guess what? Be a better book then. Okay? Be a better book. And books should have losing quarters. Books should lose. That should happen. You should lose because the player loses. The book should lose. And if you take a big bet from somebody, and I'm not saying you have to take a max. Okay? I'm not saying you should be forced to take a $10 million bet from somebody. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that there should be a minimum that everybody gets. Okay. So there should be a house minimum, and you shouldn't say you get, Tom gets $1.27 and Tim gets 10,000. I don't think that's right. And I know that was probably the biggest fight that Dave and I had on air, off air. He completely disagreed with me, and he felt like there had to have been, and Butchie, I see you. I get it. I know all of you guys would not be okay. Open bet, Matt. Okay. I understand your point. I do. Books don't like it. Okay. Books don't like that opinion, but you guys on your side of the counter, you guys want to have all the control, and we live in your world, and you guys get to dictate to us as the gambler. You get to tell us what we can and cannot do, but people get limited all the time. I just got it on my Instagram, on my X account an hour ago from a brigade member who in Colorado got limited, and they're angry and they're like, Matt, can you help me push this out? I can't. Because as of right now, there is nothing to protect the player on this. Massachusetts was the first state to actually have a conversation about this. And now they have a rule that states you have to tell the player why they've been limited. Doesn't mean they can't do it. They just have to tell the player why they did it, which does open up some legal issues, clearly, when you say, well, you've won too much. Well, that doesn't look good to the regulators. You're like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean this guy won too much? So, that guy on Beacon Street lost 10,000 2 days ago. This guy here took you for 20,000 who lives in Saugus, and he took you. So wait a minute, what's the difference? Because that guy won and that guy lost. So you want the loser and not the winner? That's discriminatory. That's problematic. So that's where we are. Okay. The books don't have to do what I want them to do because no state in the union is going to operate that because everyone says those books would pull out of those states because they want the ability to limit the player. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Okay. And that I have been consistent with that I believe there should be a bill of rights for gamblers. I think there should be some conversation piece. And I think that, we talk about discrimination in all different walks of life, and we never talk about discrimination based upon success. And I do believe that gamblers who win are punished. And the reason the books get to say is like, well, that must be a syndicate. That's a Beard, or that's Billy Walters, or that's somebody else. They get to hide behind all these different things of like, well, we can't do that because the player who's winning consistently, we don't trust them because they've got 10 different people running to the window to bet for them. Well, okay, we'll just have one guy. Don't limit him. Get him playing. Keep him playing. So that's my issue. And I understand the book angle. I do understand why books are completely against that, and they feel like they have to defend their practices and defend their business when I say those types of things. But I just think that there is an unusual environment that sports books get to operate in America where other walks of life don't get the same ability to discriminate based upon whatever they want. Like whatever they come up with, they're like, oh, I don't like you, limited. That's not okay. It's not. And there are plenty of people who are doing it wrong, and that hurts those doing it right. But I do think we need to have more protection for players and what happens when they go to make a bet and when they get limited to play, that they can just say, see you later. We don't want your business anymore. Okay, but why? Because if I say that to somebody that walks into a cake shop, I don't want your business anymore. Why? And I tell them, I don't like the way you look, or I don't like the way you walk. I don't like the way you talk. I don't like what you live. I don't like your life. That's discriminatory. So the answer is you win. We don't like it that you win. Wait, this is a book, right? This is a sports. I'm supposed to win at some point, right? Somebody's got to win. No, that's not how this works. We have to win. The book has to win. You have to lose. For us to operate in the business, we need more losers than winners. So if we don't have that, if we have more winners than losers, we go out of business and we can't operate a sports book. And I get fired. That's the dirty little secret about all of this. Books can't exist without losers. And so DraftKings and FanDuel have just taken it to the next level. They've taken it up to this whole world where all they want is losers. Most books want to be fair because it's 11 versus 10. So you hear Adam Bjorn talk about it all the time with BetChris. They want to use the information from the winning player to help them shape their number, to see where the number should be, and then be able to go ahead and offer fair numbers and fair vig, fair juice, fair odds, take a fair bet from a player. That's what they want. Take a bet, move the number. Take a bet, move the number, right? And they know that there's winners and losers. There's master players and there's public players. They want them both. And that's how the ecosystem it works, because it's 11 versus 10. They already have that. And living in that margin, they're good with living in that margin versus 30% hold, 40% hold. These things just go completely out of control because you're answering to Wall Street. You're answering to investors. You're answering to the private equity firms versus running a business, a sports book, or what a sports book is supposed to look like. So that's the problem. That's my issue when I look at that when it comes to books. So I think there's two different questions, kind of go on a rant, but there's two different questions you were asking there. I'm okay with people in Colorado being asked by DraftKings, FanDuel, whomever, to contact their representative. I do. I think that's American democracy. That's how this works. So I'm good with that. The practice of limiting players, I'm not okay with. I think it's wrong. And we just went through all of that. So just to give you an idea, I got two plays in the NIT to give you guys. Okay, Just Picks being brought to you by our friends at the Prop Bet Cheat Sheet from Betting Pros. Download the Betting Pros app. Check out their algorithm-based prop bet wager suggestions. 5-star plays have been very profitable this year. You can go to bettingpros.com/NBA props or download the Betting Pros app in the App Store and search for the for NBA props and or the prop bet cheat sheet for that. I like Wichita State at +4.5 tonight on the road against Tulsa. Wichita has been very good ATS this season. This number has come down. It was 4.5 last night. This number now is 3.5 for these two. So you got, I have 1 point of CLV, but Wichita 22-12 ATS this season, 7-3 ATS over their last 10 games. Tulsa 17-15-1. They were not great in the regular season. In conference, these two teams are in the same conference, and they played against each other back on the 14th of March. Neutral site game in the conference tournament, but a 13-point win for Wichita State. They were 1.5-point dogs. Now they are 4.5-point dogs or 3.5-point dogs. I like Wichita State. I'll take the Shockers in the NIT at +4.5. Second bet here tonight. I like the points with St. Joe's, even though New Mexico has been killing people. And I mean, killing people. New Mexico has won their first two games in this tournament, 25 and 24 points. They beat George Washington by 25 points in their last game. They beat Sam Houston by 24 points in the game before that. A 1-point win over Cal on the road for St. Joe's, and a 5-point win against Colorado State on the road for St. Joe's. The good thing, if you're going to take the Hawks here, they went 15-5 ATS in conference, 9-1 over their last 10 games ATS wise for St. Joe's, and on the road 12-7 ATS, including for outright road games. They've covered in 5 consecutive outright road games. St. Joe's has covered here. Give me the Hawks +11.5. This number is down to 10.5 at certain books. Some books are at 11. But I like St. Joe's plus the point. So road dogs tonight in the NIT coming up here with that. I will do MLB when MLB actually begins. My problem with Major League Baseball starting this early, and I get it, that they want to captivate everything and they want to get people to be excited about what's happening here. It's early, okay? Wednesday, March 25th. Like what are we doing? Thursday, March 26th, fine. But there will be future wagers made tomorrow. There will be, a dabble or two. But Yankees, Giants, 5:05. What's the temperature going to be in that game tomorrow night in San Francisco? It's going to be gorgeous, hopefully. So warm here. And maybe I would bet the over in that game. The line is 7. That might be an unusual day for the ball to fly out of that ballpark in San Francisco due to the weather that we're schedule wise for tomorrow. So looking forward to coming up with that. Time for favorite thing about today. Favorite thing about today. This is a Tuesday where we kind of breathe a little bit, kind of take stock of kind of what we're all doing and how we're going to do it going forward. We're in for a really fun weekend. So my favorite thing about today is that today is a day to get all of your stuff done. Whatever you got going on, because we have Major League Baseball tomorrow. We have a full slate on Thursday. You have 4 games in the NCAA Tournament Sweet 16 coming up on Thursday. Then we go into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is really the last great weekend of college basketball, because the Final Four weekend for Saturday, Monday, it's great because the games are huge, but there's 2 games and then there's 1 game and we're done. So now we've got 4-4-2-2. So we have a full weekend of college basketball to get into. We have a full weekend of Major League Baseball to get into. I'm really excited. about Major League Baseball. And I started the prep last night in terms of really getting into the first week starters as to how you get involved. I tend to tiptoe into Major League Baseball. Okay. I don't come firing out of the gates. The weather oftentimes is a big concern. The weather here in the Southwest is so weird. I mean, we're going to break 4 records this week for temperatures. We broke the record here in Vegas for March 23rd by 6 degrees yesterday. We're going to break the record today by 7 degrees. We're going to break the record tomorrow by 6 degrees. We're not just breaking the record for the hottest on temperature ever day in March in Vegas. We are obliterating it. So like, watch that. Watch for games being played in situations. Eric is asking, how was MLB last year for the Daily Juice? What did we wind up last year for the Daily Juice? Hold on. I'll tell you right now. The record for Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball record last year was, where's my MLB record? 123-99. That was 55%, up 18.4 units. MLB player props, I went 34-24 for Major League Baseball player props. That's a 58.6 clip. So that was up 5 units. So Major League Baseball last year, I was up 24 units in Major League Baseball last year on the Daily Juice. So it was very good. It was very good last year. Mostly due to Quinn Priester. If you can give me a Quinn Priester run like we had last year where he won 18 consecutive starts and I was on him from number 3 on and I won 15 straight bets with Quinn Priester. If you can give me that again, we're going to have another very good year betting baseball. Give me that again, please. Tomorrow we will do a full baseball preview as Major League Baseball returns. Hope to see you all back here for the Wednesday edition, 1 p.m. Eastern start for BvB, presented by BetCris Arizona.